In today's show, Air Force vet and adaptive athlete Chris Wolff joins us. Chris Wolff has an incredible story of perseverance, and you will hear his story. You will also hear how one can go from the hospital bed with a C4 quadriplegic diagnosis to a Spartan OCR. We will also talk Operation Enduring Warrior and how this organization successfully fulfills their mission to honor, empower, and motivate our nation's wounded military and law enforcement veterans through physical, mental, and emotional rehabilitation, and how they also support the adaptive tribe. Also, you'll hear a recap of Chris Wolff's experience recently competing in a Spartan Super and a Spartan Sprint, and I was there to join him. So tune in, because this is a good episode, and Chris Wolff is an incredible story that's still growing.
Through that tragedy taught me life is finite. You really have a short window to take what it is from life that you want and enjoy it.
You can go back to that day, February 18, 1990, and change what happened. My honest answer is I wouldn't change it.
You're just going to have to go through it, and your strength is going to be found in simply going through it and being authentic and real in the process.
I was talking with my palliative care doctor today, and she turned around to me and she looked at me and she was like, do you think that you'll eventually beat this? And I was sort of like, yeah, that's probably what I'm trying to do.
No, nothing will ever take away the pain of my daughter not being here. It's my reality.
Well, I know what my body's going to do to me. I've got a wheelchair in my future. But you know what I've been looking for?
What's that?
One with off-road wheels.
Just remembering me as I am, happy and energetic and full of life, no matter what.
You can expect life to kick you in the teeth, but you always get back up, no matter what, and you just keep going.
Living Adaptive with Scott Davidson.
Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome back. Just a heads up, summer's coming to a close, so we will begin to resume a regular schedule of shows, so expect that. Also, just a reminder, you can find Living Adaptive at www.livingadaptive.com. There you'll find a bunch of good content, previous episodes, social media links, and a bunch of other good stuff. So go there. All right, let's jump into this. I'm sitting with Chris Wolff right now. Chris Wolff and I got to do some pretty crazy stuff, and we went to Snow Basin. We did a Spartan Super up to 8,300 feet. Chris is probably the first to ever do this Spartan Super in a chair here at Snow Basin. He'll probably be the last because it's really damn dangerous, and I think we're all in agreement that it's probably not a good idea to keep doing rounds up there. But Chris, man, it was awesome to be with you. It was really fun, and thanks for being here today.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for inviting me to talk about what we did up there on that mountain, brother.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. It was a pretty wild experience, and one of the more rigorous terrains I've seen. And I kind of stumbled into you guys. I heard you were out there, and I'm like, this is a group I need to catch up to. And through mutual friends, I was able to catch up with you guys, and it was pretty rad to see all the work you've put into it. How long have you been training to compete?
For this, literally started last year, right after the Spartan Para-Elite in Laughlin, Nevada. I mean, it started off with preparing for the first Utah thing, which was last year, was the Red Bull 400. Mm-hmm. And my wife and I were looking at something to challenge my physical limitations, and she found on a website the Red Bull 400, which is to climb the Nordic ski jump at Park City, Utah, at the Olympic Training Center there. And I said, okay, let me do that. And I did it with another Marine buddy and my wife, and I got to 150 meters, and my body defeated me. And I knew that I had properly trained for the physical limitations, but I did not train for the altitude limitations that would put on my body. So I made a phone call feeling very, very defeated. I made a phone call to Jonathan Lopez, who's part of Operation Enduring Warrior. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, brother, I got defeated, and I feel like I don't want this to be the end all. I want to conquer this next year at the Red Bull 400. And he said, brother, we will make sure that you will get up that top of that mountain. You will finish on your own power. And that happened here less than a month and a half ago. In June 1st, I went out with Operation Enduring Warrior. There was a 4-man mass team, and 4 other individuals, being one of the other individuals was Randy Deal. And got a chance to attempt the ski jump again. But this time I was better prepared. I started taking supplements that focused on altitude changes and started training a little bit harder, trying to go up there because it's a 400-meter climb, which is in all honesty, a lie. It ended up being 1.2 miles by the time we got done. And we conquered it in 2 hours and 15 minutes. And I was able to get from the very bottom to the very top at the Nordic ski jump there in Park City, Utah, just here June 1st, brother.
It's a pretty crazy climb. I've seen that in person plenty of times, that area that you're going up to, and it's nuts. But you're dealing with limitations because you went through some serious stuff, man. We should get this out there right now, is that you've been through some tough stuff. Do you want to go into that a little bit?
I started off, decided I wanted to join the military and wanted to follow in the footsteps of my family members, but also looked at a military service that none of my family members went into. So I said, you know what, let me look at the Air Force. I had family in the Navy, had family in the Army, and I had a little bit of ties in the Marine Corps. And I said, you know what, let me look at the Air Force. I hadn't seen anybody do this. So I decided to sign up in 2001, and the Air Force said, you know what, we have no calling at this point for this job, and we're going to put you on a delayed enlistment. So your enlistment date will be January the 12th of 2002. I said, okay, cool. I'll prepare. I'll, start, training, getting myself ready for the military life. And my grandpa said, you know what? Hey, kids, as a graduation gift from high school, I was 18 at the time. I'm going to send you guys to New York. We're going to take a trip to Pennsylvania to see your mom, and we're going to go to New York. And I said, awesome. So I got to hang out with my mom. Hadn't seen her since I was a kid. And I went out to there, and then crossing the Verrazano Bridge on September 10th of 2001, my grandpa looked over and said, hey, look over those two buildings over there. And I distinctively remember them. One building had a red light on top, and one had a green light on top. And my grandpa said, hey, kids, tomorrow morning we're going to have breakfast there in the tower, and we're going to have breakfast at the Windows of the World with our family members. So got up on September 11th, 2001, didn't think it was just a normal day. Got in a train, went all the way down to the harbor, boarded the ferry to cross the harbor there to go towards a Battery Park, and watch both planes hit the World Trade Centers that morning. And watched the first one hit, watched the first one after the first one hit. It looked like a movie scene. I was looking at it from the distance going, man, that's amazing pyrotechnics. And then saw the second one, and I knew, you know what, that's not intentional. That was not on our own calling. Somebody did this to us. And I made 3 phone calls that day. The first one was to my dad to let him know I was alive, to my mom to let her know I was alive, and to my Air Force recruiter. And I was in the military 30 days later. So I joined the military on October 9th, 2001, and got to go to Texas. I started off my duty station down there learning how to become an aircraft mechanic. Then got the opportunity to go to Ramstein Air Force Base, Germany, where I became a heavy aircraft mechanic on C-130s. Did that job for 3 solid years. In the process, kicked off Iraq. We took the first ID out of Grafenwoehr, Germany, and took them into Tallil, Iraq in the beginning of March of 2003. Since that point, I deployed 2 more times in Operation Enduring Iraqi Freedom, and I got orders to Korea. So I went in the Air Force. I said, okay, let me see what this brings me. I went out there, learned how to work on F-16s, U-2s, A-10s, and Navy aircraft. And in the process, while I was there, I got orders because the tsunami had hit Thailand, and I got orders to forward deploy to assist in catching and refueling and fixing aircraft while they were doing the humanitarian aid there for the tsunami. After 3 months of being on that location, I came back home to Osan Air Base, Korea, worked an additional 9 more months doing my 12-year tour, finishing my short tour 1 year, and got orders to Washington State and worked on the C-17 at McChord Air Force Base. While I was there at McChord Air Force Base, I deployed 3 more times for Operation Enduring Freedom, and I got to be stationed out there and work on aircraft in Afghanistan and 4 locations out there in that area, controlling the movement that we had to protect freedom that we were out there. On my last mission, we were flying in and out of a forward operating base, and we took an RPG to our outboard motor on almost touchdown. And pilot pulled up, airplane caught on fire. The crew looked at each other, did the procedure, and instead of the RPG blowing up the aircraft, the pilot was able to manage the fire, put the fire out. We landed, explosive ordnance disposal came out, removed the armament from the aircraft, to find out that we had caught the individual who had shot the armament. He didn't get a chance to arm the weapon, so at this point it was just a flying projectile, and it hit us just right. And as we were coming down, I at that point was shaken. I mean, we should have all died over there in pieces over the fields of Afghanistan. And when I came home, I kissed the ground. We flew home with a dead engine, kissed the ground, and I was happy to be home, happy to start, going back and finding out what my next deployment was, because that's what the military calls upon you. I went in what we call a redeployment line, and that's where we drop off our deployment gear and we get our active duty gear, and then we find out what our next deployment is. I got a flu shot, which was a live virus nasal spray. And 19 days later, after getting that vaccine, I woke up paralyzed from the neck down.
Yeah, I've heard the story. It's a remarkable story. And when I stumbled on you guys on this mountain, it was like hanging out with like the toughest, grittiest, push forward crew I've been around. It was amazing. And that attitude shows in all the deployments, your willingness to just go and serve after the towers go down, which you witnessed firsthand, which is really wild. And then after all this danger that you've been in, you came back and, you had your flu treatment, your flu mist, and it changed everything. But people need to understand, it didn't just knock you down for a little bit. You were really, really laid up for a while, man. You went into paralysis. I don't know what point the paralysis hit in the body, but you were in bed for a long time.
Yeah. So after waking up after 19 days, I woke up thinking everything was fine. So I rolled out of bed, and when I rolled out of bed, my legs collapsed from underneath me. I army crawled my way to my living room floor, where I passed out. Ended up at the time my ex-wife came and said, and woke me up from what I thought I had just fallen, to find out that I couldn't move any part of my body. So I was taken to a civilian hospital, and within 12 hours of being in the emergency room, I was put in the ICU because they were watching the virus progress all the way up my spinal cord and into my brain. Within 72 hours of being admitted, I was a C5 quadriplegic with 42 lesions on my brain. The prognosis at that time, I was put in a medically induced coma. So I didn't even know what was going on physically with my own body. And, from the stories that I got, that I laid in a hospital bed and they tried everything that they could, treating me for the West Nile, to the Black Plague, to everything that they had known, and to the point where they did one last ditch procedure, and it's called plasmapheresis. And they ended up saving my body. And within 24 hours, all traces of the lesions that were in my brain were gone.
How bad did it get in there? How bad was your mindset at that point?
Well, when I came to, this was November 19th or November 18th of 2008, when I physically came to understand what was going on around me, it was December 23rd of 2008. So 2 days before Christmas. And I woke up, I looked at my eye, opened my eyes, and I'm in an ambulance. And the technician looks at me and he's like, "Hey, brother, we're transporting you to the hospital." And I was like, "Hey, brother, we're not already at the hospital?" And he said, "No, you were actually at another hospital. You've been in a medically induced coma for for 38 days. And I was like, "What?" And the next thing I know, I'm in a hospital room and I'm being told that my prognosis is that I'm going to be a vegetable. As a C5 quadriplegic, I was on a tracheotomy, feeding tube, and told that I was going to be a burden and that I would be looking at paralysis for the rest of my life. And every 2.5 hours, I was turned to make sure that I didn't get a bed sore or an open wound or any damage more than was already done to my body just by laying in there as 38 days that I was in a medically induced coma.
Did you believe the diagnosis?
Honestly, brother, when I first heard that prognosis, it hit me pretty hard. It hit me like a big sack of bricks right across the face.
Yeah.
And I knew that all I could do is look down at my body. But at the same part, I had no feeling of what, like, every day to day, we have the feeling of what our fingertips feel like or what our toes feel like, whatever our body feels like. And I honestly, from the neck down, it was dead. I didn't feel a single thing. I couldn't tell you I was in pain. I could tell you that the machine was breathing for me, so I knew I wasn't able to expand and contract my own lungs. And at that point, I was like, okay, well, based on what I see, this is what I'm going to be. I'm going to be a vegetable. I'm going to be a burden, and I'm not going to be able to be the person that I thought I was. That I was 25 years old at the time, and I thought that I could be this amazing individual, be a military career. This was what my focus was. I was going to make it a career, and I was going to build a family, and everything that was going on. And after looking at it, I just laid there. I mean, honestly, there was a time at that moment, I had a PICC line to my heart. And I thought, sadly, if there was a time that I could, this would be the perfect time to take my own life. And what stopped me from taking my own life was the physical capability of being able to do that. I thought in my head, if I could just reach with my teeth, rip the PICC line out, I would be done. Because at that point, that would be the line to my heart. I could finish this off, and I wouldn't be a burden to those around me. And what stopped me, honestly, brother, was the physical ability.
There was that turning point where eventually you thought, like, okay, I can do more. I can do way more than what they're saying. And there's opportunities. There's more. I like Aaron Baker, spinal cord injury too. And I like his mom and him, how they approached it was like, we need to start focusing on the possibilities instead of these probabilities of, it's not going to be good. And they started focusing on the possibilities. He had a 1 in a million chance of moving from the neck down. And it turned out, well over the years, and he keeps improving.
Yeah, so my prognosis, what I was diagnosed with, is called acute disseminated encephalomyelitis. And the prognosis happens to 0.01% of 100,000 people. And on average, it's 8 in a million a year. And it happens to children. And the prognosis mostly is they have a bounce back, where they're like, okay, well, they have some type of residual paralysis. But because of how far mine progressed and how everything was going on, I had to the realization that, this is what's going to be for the rest of my life. In 2.5 years into my prognosis of laying in a hospital bed, I was yelling at myself internally every single day for those 2.5 years. Every single day I said, move your stupid body. Just move any part of your body, because if you can do that, then you can. Then this is not what it's going to be. And in March of 2010, the middle of March of 2010, I lifted my left hand up off the bed about 1/4 of an inch. And I looked at myself, looked down at my hand, and I was like, did that really happen? So I did it again. And I knew that if I could just move any more of that beyond that there was more for me than to just lay in this hospital bed and to be a C5 quadriplegic for the rest of my life. And as I would progress more and more into inpatient rehab, I was introduced to a recreational therapist, an occupational therapist. And she said, you know what, we got this room that has a Wii in it. And I just want you to, slowly lift your hand. I'm going to put it on your lap, and I want you to slowly, I'm going to attach the remote to your hand, and I want you to focus on just flinging it and flinging it and flinging it. And for every single day that I sat there and flung it, I got to the point where I could play a set of bowling with one hand. And I figured, you know what? If I can play bowling, I can do more. So I got introduced to a Smith press machine. And I had to have my hand strapped up to the press machine. But every single day I would push 1 little inch, 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch, to the point where then I was pushing on my upper body. And about 6 months after being in the hospital from there, I was discharged. But I had my full upper capability of moving my own body and pushing myself in my own wheelchair.
So you had all this rehab, you had everything go down, but then you started hanging with a couple groups that are pretty empowering. You know what I mean? I don't know what came first for you. Was it the veteran organizations or Adaptive Training Foundation?
So I got introduced to adaptive training or adaptive sports in Washington State. And it was just a small introduction to, hey, I want to teach you how to ski. So at this point, I was learning how to use my upper body with the limitations that I had, because I didn't have full strength, but I still had the capability of being able to grip and move. But at the same time, I was like, okay, well, now I need to get out and part of the community and be a member of society like everybody else is. So I got introduced to a program called Outdoors for All up in Washington State. And they said, we want to take you on a skiing trip. We want to take you every weekend for 2.5 months. If you can make it up here, we want to take you skiing. I said, you know what, let me do that. So they strapped me into a monoski, which is a sit-down ski with one single ski down the middle of it, and they tether you. And we literally went up and down the mountain for one solid weekend. And I was like, you know what, this is when I learned about the word adaptive. Mm-hmm. And the word adaptive to me means more than just I see something, I can do something. The concept of is I was told a lot through my rehab that I can't do something. And I can look at somebody straight in the face right now and tell you that I can do anything. I'm just not going to be able to do it the way you think I should be able to do it, but I'm going to adapt to it and make it the way it works for me. And I'm also going to be in the process, I'm going to adapt it for somebody else so they can do it the way what works for them also.
Okay, so you get introduced to adaptive sports, and now you kind of run with a group called Operation Enduring Warrior. But before Operation Enduring Warrior, I think you're one of the pilot athletes that came out of Adaptive Training Foundation. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So being involved in the VA has every single year something called the VA Wheelchair Games, and it is literally, for better terms, the Olympics for veterans that are in wheelchairs. And we compete with, I think it's 21 different events in a matter of 1 week, from everything from archery to basketball to softball to swimming, trap shooting, 9-ball, table tennis. And I got introduced to this my first year of introduction, and I went to Philadelphia, and then the second year I got an opportune chance to come to Dallas, Texas. And while I was in Dallas, Texas, my coach that was with us, part of our team, said, "Hey, I've heard of this. I got this gym that my sister goes to. When I was younger, my sister and I were in a car accident. I walked away from the gym, from the car, but my sister did not. And she's a T12 paraplegic." And I said, okay. And looking at what her prognosis was and my prognosis at the time, I was a T12. And I was like, wow, that's super awesome. And she said, "This gym has changed my sister's life. She is now up and walking and able to use forearm crutches, and she was bound to a chair. And now it's been almost 18 years since her injury, and now she's up and walking." And I just wanted to introduce you to this gym. Doesn't mean you have to go there. Doesn't mean you have to do anything. I just want to let you know that there are programs out there. I said, awesome. So we looked at my schedule. Wednesday morning was open. And she said, you know what? Let's go Wednesday morning. So we drove all the way down to this small little building out in the middle of Design District in Dallas. And I said, okay. So as I get out the vehicle, my wife helps me get into my wheelchair. And as I come out, this big, massive individual walks out the door. And he starts talking to me, and he's like, "Hey, I'm David Vobora. I run this gym, and I heard you wanted to come check this location out." And he starts asking me questions. And he goes, "Okay, so what happened?" So I explained my story. What happened to me? And he said, "Hey, when's the last time that you jumped?" And I said, "Honestly, brother, the last time I jumped was in 2008 when I had a reason." And he goes, No, I want to try something with you. I wanted to see if this could help you. This could change you. This is what's going on. So he put me in what we call a harness into a system called the Solo Step. And it's a harness system from the ceiling that you suspend yourself to give pressure off of your legs, but at the same time to control how much pressure is so you can walk while standing. But the biggest concept that I had when I told David, when he put it up, is, "Hey, brother, I'm going to fall. And I hate the feeling of hitting the ground. It hurts. Gravity always wins. Gravity's the biggest reason why I don't try to push past where I'm going right now, because it's painful." And he looked at me and said, "Hey, brother, I'm going to let you know this much. Falling is not failure. Falling is success, because I now know once you fall where I need to start and where we can grow from that point on." And I was like, wow, it's a super awesome concept to think about. Falling to me is failure, because the ground hurts. I fell, I hit the ground. It's a failure. And he said, all right. So we put me up on the Solo Step, and we were able to take some small walks using PVC pipes. And he's like, "Hey, brother, let me get you up on a trampoline." And I was like, all right, let's see where this is going to go. So he puts me up on a trampoline, and I remember there were 6 pieces of tape on the wall, and they were on number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And he goes, "I want you to put your hands on the very top on this bottom set of numbers, and I want you to just get that spongy feeling of what it feels like, to just feel like what it feels like to jump." And I was like, all right, brother. So I got that spongy feeling, and the moment I pushed off that trampoline, I fell backwards. And David Vobora grabbed me, and he said, "Hey, brother, I'm going to let you know this much. I'm not going to let you hit the ground, and I'm not going to let you fail." I was like, whoa, okay, that's super cool. So I started getting this spongy feeling, what it felt like, and I started going up and down. He goes, "All right, now I want you to remove your hands from the wall." And second I moved my hands from the wall, I fell back again. He goes, "Brother, I told you, I'm here for you." It's like, okay. So I started jumping up in the air, and I'm clearing the trampoline maybe a quarter of an inch. My legs are coming off while in this harness system. So I'm not going to hit the ground or hurt myself. And he goes, "All right, brother, this one you got to really trust me on." I said, "All right, what's that, brother?" He goes, "I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to take one jump." And I closed my eyes, and I took one jump. And the second my eyes closed, I fell back, and he reached back, and he held me there like suspended in air. And he said, "Brother, this is what it feels like to be able to achieve accomplishments. Right here is where it all starts." And I was like, "What do you mean, brother?" And he said, "Wait, you'll see where this goes." So I started jumping, closed my eyes. I got up off the ground. I took 2 jumps. I was off the trampoline, but not even with my eyes closed, I could just tell something was different. So David sits me down, and he says, "Hey, brother, I have an organization called the Adaptive Training Foundation. I'm a small little gym, and what it is, I focus on giving back for disabled veterans and people with disabilities, giving them back giving back to them through changing what their limitations are by realizing is it a physical limitation? Is it something that your brain won't let you to go do it? Or is there a neurological limitation that's stopping you from being able to do what it is that you're wanting? And he said, all right, brother, I'll give you a heads up that there's a sticker price for this. It's $4,500 for a 9-week class. And he says, I want to get you here. And I said, okay. So I went back home. I was living in Colorado Springs at the time. And I looked at my wife and I said, I don't care what it takes. We're going to fundraise for me to be able to spend 9 weeks in Dallas, Texas to see where this could take me. On October 8th of 2010, I got a phone call. No, correction. On October 8th, 2010, my daughter was born at 3:00 in the morning. A beautiful baby girl named is Garen. And Mama was doing good. We're sitting there and 6:00 rolls around and I get a text message from my phone. And it says, David Verbora, says his name on there, and it says, hey, give me a call when you get a chance. So I looked over at my wife, Kelly, and I said, hey, what's up? And she said, what's up? And I said, David Verbora says to call him. She said, well, call him, see what's going on. So I pick up the phone, I call David, and first of all, David just explains to me, brother, welcome to being a dad. It's an amazing thing to do. I'm glad that you could be a part of this. Like, it was amazing that you're able to do this. This can change your life. And he goes, hey, brother, the other thing I want to do is, are you sitting down? And I said, David, I'm in a wheelchair. I'm always sitting down. So David says, brother, I want to let you know to stop fundraising. I'm like, why, brother? Why should I stop fundraising? I'm trying to be here. And he said, because there's an organization that has stepped up and paid your way, and you're going to be in my class on January 18th of 2016. And I was like, what? And he said, yes. So on literally 3 months after my daughter was born, I packed up all of my stuff by myself, drove all the way to Dallas, Texas, and I was the first national athlete for the Adaptive Training Foundation here in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, I know your story a bit. I kind of followed it, and I knew where you stood in there. And it's kind of a prestigious role because ATF has kicked off a really substantial empire out there, making a ton of difference. I mean, Dave is a very intense guy. When he says he's in it, he's in it. And so hearing that you got to be one of the first to really just boot this whole system off is pretty incredible. But you don't just roll with ATF. You also roll with a very prestigious, very powerful, very badass group called Operation Enduring Warrior, man. And that's your group, man. And you seem to kind of be magnetized towards this. You're still in the realm of alpha, go get it, press forward, man. How'd you get involved with OEW?
So I literally was at the Adaptive Training Foundation in January. I rolled in the end of March of 2016. I walked out using forearm crutches. After I was done with ATF, the 9-week training course, I looked at trying to push my limitations, trying to do the next thing. And I looked at one of the trainers that was there, and I said, hey, brother, I want to do an obstacle course. And he said, you know what? There's a Spartan in Glen Rose, Texas, and we would love to take you there. So I hopped in my wheelchair, and I knocked out a sprint in my wheelchair. We knocked it out in 4 hours and 13 minutes in 2017. And along the way, I got introduced to an individual by the name of Johnny Lopez, or Jonathan Lopez. And he's a single-arm amputee out of the Army, and he is part of an organization called Operation Enduring Warrior. And we kicked it off. Him and I laughed. You know, the military, we're the 1%. You know, but at the same time, we may be different services, but we all talk the same. We all laugh at the same kind of concept of life, and we all have that fight or flight concept where we're going to change what's currently going on because I'm going to put 100% towards what it is that I'm going to do to not only help myself, but at the same time to help the team concept. Mm-hmm. And Johnny Lopez said, you know what, I want you to be part of Operation Enduring Warrior, and I want to honor you by doing an event. And I said, brother, that's awesome. So trying to figure out what that was last year, like I said, I was on that mountain climbing the Red Bull 400, and the first person I called was Johnny Lopez to tell him that I had been defeated by that hill climb. And he literally, no joke, at the end of that line that year told me, brother, we're doing this next year and you are conquering it, and you're going to do it with Operation Enduring Warrior. And 1 year goes by, and literally June 1st of this year, I went up with 4 masked individuals and conquered the Red Bull 400.
Which we have, I want the listeners to know, which we do have. We'll link video of that because it went viral. We'll link that, you conquering the Red Bull 500.
Yeah. So as I'm done with the Red Bull 400, first person I'm at the top of that hill was my daughter, my 9-year-old daughter. I was able to tell her to be an inspiration to not only her, but also a couple of individuals that honestly would have never even been part of our organization except seeing what I was doing on that hill. I got introduced to 2 individuals. One is Sarah Rose and her friend Cheyenne, and they were on their way that morning to do the Red Bull 400. We're going to knock it out and leave. And in the process of leaving, she saw me climbing the hill and was like, I want to be a part of this. So we get done. I climb the Red Bull 400. I get all the way done, and we're all talking about it. And I get introduced to, at the time at the beginning, Randy Deal. And I said, hey, I want to go down this mountain in a style that would represent how I came up it. And we looked at trying to be able to zip line down it. And the organization said no. I was like, well, then let's go down the ski lift. So we went down the ski lift. They paired me with Randy Deal, and I'm going down the ski lift. And Randy Deal looks at me straight over and says, hey, brother, what's next? And I said, Randy, what's next for me is I want to complete the Spartan trifecta next year. And he looked at me straight in the face and said, brother, why next year when we can do it this year? And I said, all right, then let's do this. So we scheduled it, and we were able to look at my schedule and block it out with him. So he goes out and kills it out in Fort Carson for the Spartan down there for their sprint, and then goes up to Mount Rainier, helps a double-leg amputee blind partially climb and conquer the Mount Rainier in Washington State, hops on an airplane, meets me in Utah, and on Saturday morning, we knocked out the Spartan Super in 9.5 hours.
I got to be part of that, man. And what an honor to watch you guys work together. I mean, Randy has no quit in him. Him and you guys, OEW, Operation Enduring Warrior, I guess the motto is, and we talked about this before the interview, is kind of like, this is Make-A-Wish for the military. Like most people want Disneyland. Military guys, a lot of military personnel want to go and do challenging things. And that's what you did on the 20th, I believe. To give listeners perspective, 8,300 feet was about where we hit, and it was about 9.4 miles, and the terrain was extremely rugged and extremely steep. And once we were coming down, we're getting towards the finish, we could see, and in this, there's lots of obstacles, and we could see the A-frame cargo net, and we could see your daughter, man. And she was freaking pumped. She was just so proud of her dad. And I remember closing that race out, and you hit the finish line, and she was just so proud. And she put the medal around you because a super was no joke, man. And you hit your goals, and it was a really special experience for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we got up that morning, and I'm in a Freedom Grit chair, which is a hand-cranked wheelchair that honestly was not the mountains were not ideal for this chair. And we knew that was going to be an enormous task to take on. Operation Enduring Warrior said, you know what, this is not going to stop us. We are going to knock this out. I mean, our first major obstacle was to cross a water trough system where literally there was no bridge to cross. We literally had to lock my brakes, and 4 individuals had to cross a little valley of water. And it was like, well, man, if we can do this, we can conquer anything. So we went up this mountain. It was 2,500 foot elevation, switched back all the way for over 2 miles to the top of this mountain. We came all the way down this mountain, hit over 20 obstacles. And as you said, we came to that A-frame, and there's my 3-year-old daughter, Garen. And all she yells is, Daddy, you can do it. And knowing that right there is what pushes me to continue on to do more than what that doctor told me that I was going to be. And that was to be this vegetable, to be this burden, to be this individual that would have to rely on somebody to do everything for himself because he couldn't do it on his own. But to hear my 3-year-old daughter tell me that I could conquer, which honestly, if you look at this A-frame, is cargo straps on top of cargo straps, climbing to a height to turn around to come back right down. But what got me the biggest part about that is hearing my daughter tell me you could do it, seeing her there at the end when she pinned that medal on me was not only an accomplishment that I could prove to myself, but it was an accomplishment I could prove to her, because whatever you can do, whatever you put your mind to, you can conquer. You're going to have obstacles along the way, and they're not going to be easy, but you're going to have to adapt to those obstacles, and you're going to push through them, because that's what defines you, not the disability that defines you. And that's what I tell myself every single day. I'm in a wheelchair for long distances to get from one place to another. I'm able to walk with forearm crutches, but for longer distance, I choose to use the wheelchair. I don't let this chair define me. I define the chair.
You sure do. And not only did you finish this super the next day, you went out again to qualify for the Paris Spartan. That's going to be occurring in November. It looks like it's on. And so this is going to be occurring in November, and it will be on ESPN later in January. You went out there after all the shit everybody went through, and others couldn't go. There's injuries. There's a lot of things that happen in between, and you finished that. You finished it strong. You finished it quick. And you were greeted again with another victory. And it was a pretty badass experience, because this is a long cry. This is a far, far distance from when you were first in that hospital bed, as the lesions are on your brain and as everything is going south. This is so different, and the outcome is so very different. And it's a pretty amazing thing to see how your mind and how your approach changed it all.
Yeah, I mean, coming across doing Sunday, waking up and doing a sprint right after we just knocked out a super for 9.5 hours, crossing that finish line in 4 hours, coming in and having your daughter pin another medal on you to tell you, hey, you did not only once, Dad, but you've done this twice. And the only thing left for you is to knock out a beast, which I am signed up for in October 26th in Glen Rose, Texas, to complete my trifecta, as Randy told me, this year, not next year.
The Wolf Pack is crazy, man. There's just no quit there. There's no excuses. There's no quit. We just get it done. And the Wolf Pack is crazy. You got this huge following out there that's just wanting you to succeed now, because you're definitely breaking boundaries, man. Like I said, you're the first one to go up Snow Basin in that grit chair, which definitely was not ready for that. I'm sorry. It just wasn't. And it was definitely a lot of complications that occurred up there. And you probably will be the last to go up there. I just don't see it happening right now in the future, and I don't recommend it for others because it's really dangerous. But that's kind of what you do, man. You kind of live in that realm.
Exactly. And on day 2, we ended up having a complication with the chair. I mean, my seatbelt came completely locked, and instead of it being hey, this is an end all, because a seatbelt is a safety device, I looked at Randy Deal and I said, brother, we got to do this differently. And Randy went searching around, and we found a cargo strap, and I cargo strapped myself to that chair so we could come down that mountain. That's not what's going to stop us. This chair is not going to stop us. The only person that's going to stop us is ourselves, and we weren't allowing that to happen. Yeah,
add in that I don't think Randy's ever quit at anything. Can you imagine playing him in ping pong or some shit? There'd just be like,
yeah. You end up, it's like a marathon, watching a marathon go that is like never ending marathon, where once it's done, the reruns start over. And then the next reruns keep going. And he's like, he has no quit. That's what I loved about him, is the spirit that he had. I mean, you could tell on day 2 that he was feeling day 1, but that didn't stop him. He was like, brother, we came here to conquer this, and we are going to conquer this together.
Now, there was also another Randy on the mountain, Randy Nance, who's a Green Beret, and we'll get his story out there soon enough. And so this was a very powerful group that was up there leading this way.
But yeah, what's really awesome about Randy Nance is Randy Nance and I were on the first para-elite Spartan team for ATF Team 1 in Laughlin last year. So him and I working together again as a team just shows that we both don't have any quit. And the fact that we can go and do something that Laughlin was all soft sand, complete different environment than Utah. Utah is hilly, soft rocks, everything that goes on. And Randy deals with a disability himself, where he's an amputee. And the look and determination in his face was like, well, if Chris can do this, we can do this, and we're gonna knock this out together. And the awesome part about what's about to happen in October is Randy Nance and I will trifecta at the same exact time when we started this together last year in November.
There's stuff that you talked about in there that we didn't get to hit on, man. You had an ex-wife. You went from a hospital bed to walking with, with crutches and doing all this. But in the meantime, man, you found yourself a nice lady. When did you feel comfortable getting out there and dating?
So sadly, through all this, I was married, and through that, 3 years into my prognosis of being paralyzed, I was given orders of retirement from the Air Force. And the day I received retirement orders is also the day I received divorce paperwork. It was very hard for me to swallow that pill because I was seeing two parts of my life end at the exact same time. Mm-hmm. One being that I was in the military. I knew that's all I knew who I was going to be. I joined the military when I was 18. So now all I know is that I'm a military member. I provide for this. I fight for my country. Now that's being ripped from me. And then the only other solid thing that I had to rely on was a marriage. I was a husband. I didn't have any kids at the time, but at the same time, that's all I knew. So two of my major stronghold foundations were literally crumbling underneath me. And I went through some deep depression. I went through questioning myself, like, is this what I'm going to be for the rest of my life? What am I going to figure out? And adaptive sports changed my life. And about a year and a half into my rehab after my divorce, I said, you know what, I'm gonna put myself out there, and I'm gonna try to see where this could go, because again, I just feel there's more in life, and I need to know what that is going to be in my life. So I put myself out there online and got introduced to Kelly, and go to find out that she lived 1.5 miles from me. And we were like, okay, so I at that point, I was not very open to going out in society. I was like, you know what, for our first meet together, let me cook for you. So she came over to my house. I cooked for her, and literally, no joke, we have not looked back since. It has been 2013 is when I was introduced to her. And also the amazing thing that we do together is we celebrate a specific day together. So November 18th is her birthday, and November 18th is my Alive Day. So we get to celebrate together every single year, not only her life, but also the rebirth of what could have ruined and changed and took my life. But instead, now we're able to grow together to grow a life. And in 2015, we had our first child, Garen. And 10 weeks ago, I had my first baby boy, and his name is Patton. We call him AKA the General. And he was able to be there at this Spartan race. I know he's too young to understand this, but the pictures that we're going to be able to show him when he gets older, and the family that I have grown through Operation Enduring Warrior is going to be amazing. And he's going to be able to see that growing up, because his older sister have seen this from day one, and they're only going to be able to let it grow and let him understand, like, we saw Dad at his worst and probably not his best. And right now we're seeing him conquer things that, honestly, if you told the doctor he was going to do this, the doctor would laugh at you and tell him the moment he does that, he's going to end up ruining his life.
It's hard to imagine, and I don't say this often, but it's hard to imagine that this flu, accident would not have happened to you, because it's hard to imagine that the outcome would be different. It's hard to imagine that you wouldn't build this family, this crew, and be part of ATF and have so many watch you and see you defy what people would have thought you couldn't do, let's just say. And who knows, but you've had such great impacts. It's hard to imagine that would not have taken place.
Yes, I 100% agree. I mean, to look back at where I was 10 years ago, because November 18th of this last year, I celebrated my 10-year Alive Day. To look back at where I was November 18th of 2008 to November 18th of 2018, I couldn't have told you what was about to happen. I couldn't have told you this is what I would be looking at. But what it's done is not only change my life, but also help me inspire and change those around me.
Now we got to pick your brain, man. We got to pick your brain, because a lot of people are sitting on that couch. A lot of people are worried. A lot of people aren't doing things. And you have a method, man. What is it, man? What is it to get somebody going?
So the biggest thing that I found out was I sat there and was stuck with my thoughts. And you go to the realization that no doctor is going to tell you, okay, doctor tells you what their prognosis is based on what the book says or what they see in front of them. And the only person that can change you is you. You may not be able to change to go back to the way you were and from prior to your injury, but what you can do is change the new you to be a better you than you were before, because something in the beginning changed you to put you where you're at. If it's a bad decision, if it's, in my case, it was nothing. I was going along. I honestly thought I was 25 years old. I was invincible. I thought nothing could stop me. And then I found out there is something that could stop me. But what it did was change me for a better me. And at the same time, I was able to change the bad things I thought about myself because I was able to think more about them. And the biggest concept is like, you're sitting there on the couch, you know, going, okay, well, this is who I'm going to be for the rest of my life. That's not true. The person that can change you is you. And a lot of that is finding what is in your local community around you, or getting tied to organizations like Operation Enduring Warrior, or in lots of other cases, there's Oscar Mike, you know, other organizations that are out there that help you redefine who you are. So you have to recreate yourself based on what you already know about yourself and the things you want to change about it.
Operation Enduring Warrior is a fantastic organization, as we know. How do you get to be part of OEW?
Yeah, there's operationenduringwarrior.org. You can become a community ambassador, and you can be out there to help support or to promote what it is that Operation Enduring Warrior does, and their motto of to honor and empower and motivate, you know, our fallen, and not only our fallen soldiers and air servicemen and airmen and Marines, but also our fallen first responders. And that's what I love about that, is the group of people are not just military members that have stepped up and said, okay, our mission may have changed because we're no longer active duty. We don't put the uniform on every single day. We aren't running, you know, a ruck. We're not running this, but we are running a mission. And that mission is to be able to provide and change those around us. And as Randy Deal said it, no joke, we are the Make-A-Wish Foundation for disabled veterans, where Make-A-Wish is focusing on providing a need that person that's in an ailment wants to conquer or to be a part of, and it be something that's going to change their life before they're taken from this earth. And that's what Operation Enduring Warrior does, is provide that. But not only do they provide it in a way that you don't have to think about the whole logistical side of things, they provide it so it's done safely, so you're not injuring yourself in the process of trying to reach a goal that, if you did it on your own, may become unachievable, only because the parameters in which you can work in by yourself, they bust through those walls and let you know, like, there's nothing that can stop us from being able to accomplish anything we put our minds to.
There's only so many Randy Deals, Kevin Post, Jonathan Lopez's, you know, that are out there that can support. So they need as many ambassadors. They need Chris Wolffs out there. They need people out there to help and be part of, because there is a lot of soldiers that are wounded. There's a lot of servicemen that are wounded. And of course, there's a huge population of civilians that are disabled that need support too. So if you're out there listening, you can be part of Operation Enduring Warrior, whether it's through funds, whether you get out there and help the athletes, whether you are an athlete yourself and you want to get through these courses. There's a bunch of opportunities, and OEW is pretty much one of the easiest organizations to support out of the many that I've been around over the years. Now, how do you become an ambassador? You mentioned becoming an ambassador is a possibility for OEW. What's the method to do so?
From their website, there's an online registration. And what it is that you sign up to become an ambassador and agree to the terms to be able to promote the mission that Operation Enduring Warrior does, but it not doing it selfishly. It's doing it to be able to provide and change people's lives. And in the process, you can create a fundraising page to be able to allow the Operation Enduring Warrior to select an honoree to bring to somewhere where, and that's the thing about Operation Enduring Warrior, that person that's injured could be severely injured, and it'd be at the point where that veteran wants to go do a Spartan race, and they hand carry that individual across every single obstacle to let them know they accomplished it, because that's what it's about. It's empowering, because it doesn't matter. what small little tasks that they allow you to do on your own, or what they do as a team to get you across that obstacle, is going to change your life. Because the moment you roll up or walk up to that obstacle, the first thing in your mind is, okay, I'm going to fall off this obstacle, I'm going to hurt myself, and I'm going to do something else. But the next thing you know, you find yourself in the middle of that obstacle, then you find yourself over the obstacle, and then you find yourself on the other side of the obstacle, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, wow, if I could do that, there's way more than I can do beyond this, what looks like to me a mountain. And I just scaled this mountain, cleared it, and now next to me is these more obstacles. There's nothing that's going to stop me.
It's a good message, and that's the message behind this. And what I like about ATF, Operation Enduring Warrior, organizations like this, is that you kind of think out of the box. It's not just like we're going to go do a traditional sport. We're going to actually go out and do some crazy stuff. We're going to run some courses. We're going to do some rucks. We're going to march. We're going to do a bunch of pretty empowering things where somebody can get rough and dirty and not be afraid to get hurt again. Now I get this question for you, Chris Wolff. You've been through so much. You've been through a lot, man. You know, at 25, to have this all go down on you, to have all of a sudden be paralyzed and not know what your future is going to hold and be told pretty dire stuff that didn't actually play out. What has all this done to you, man? What has this taught you about life?
It's taught me that you need to live every single day for what it is, because you don't know if tomorrow is going to be here. And the concept is being able to show those around you that it doesn't matter what someone tells you that you're supposed to be, you're the only person that can be that. And to change that is you, and you have to find what drives you. And each individual has something that drives them differently, from a family member to maybe somebody who's passed on, somebody that they looked up to. You have to find what drives you to make the change, because the only person that's going to make that change is you.
If listeners wanted to hang out with you, this won't be the last time we're going to talk to you on Living Adaptive. We'll have you on here too. But if they want to hang out with you, man, or talk to you or run a race with you, what's the easiest way to get in touch with you?
Easiest way is christopher.wolff@yahoo.com. You can find me on Instagram at #TheBigBadWolf, and that is with WOLFF. And I'd love to see you guys out there. I'd love to see you guys show what Operation Enduring Warrior is, that not only are we a group of military veterans and first responders, but we're actually also an American society that knows that the only reason why we're free is because of the sacrifices that the 1% have made for you.
It's a beautiful statement, man. There was a lot of sacrifices, and you guys all put it on the line. And your story is a big one, but you have a lot more left to it. And we're going to continue to air and follow you. And really appreciate you being here, man, today. All right, listeners, that's our episode. Remember, go to livingadaptive.com to find previous episodes, show notes, contacts for guests like this guest, links to social media accounts, and a bunch of other good stuff. So go there. Peace.